In every countries that they experience or encounter with the activities of pyramid scheme, normally their central banks will attempt to interfere, and normally they will interfere with the assistance of law enforcement agencies like police, for example, or the financial intelligence unit. The subject of the intervention is about maintaining the stability and sustainability of activities such as pyramid scheme. So I am actually putting out a, a basic statistics from the Solomon Islands Central Bank here. So if you look at the statistics here, uh, the statistics, it shows us the GDP for the country. For GDP, these are the amounts for GDP. One is real GDP, and second is the nominal GDP. Now, GDP is basically for non-economists, is basically the value of all the services and products that produce in the country for a certain period or a given measured timeline or period. So when a GDP is given its statistics or its data without the adjustment of inflation, for example, when it's not adjusted, that's nominal GDP, and real GDP is in fact the data which reflected on the adjusted inflation rate. Now, the GDP is very important indicator because it entails the amount of value that is produced by services and products within the country. It is kind of a very significant data where the regulators such as the central bank or reserve bank, they ensure that in a country that is dealing with, among others, including pyramid, with statistics that are available in other jurisdictions, which have touched on the Albania example, just to give us the indicator here. So these are the very important statistics where regulators, they also have to ensure that the operation or the way they are dealing with exports and imports and illegal operations such as pyramid, they have to ensure that the sort of activities can be put off before it can affect the data such as the GDP. I have discussed in the statistics of or the data on Albania, for example. The economy of Albania in 1997, it actually collapsed. Now, I've already mentioned in that presentation. The collapse of the Albania economy is when the pyramid scheme that existed in Albania in 1997 actually reached half of the Albanian GDP. Now, it is very, very unsustainable if, for example, in the case of the Solomon Islands, if pyramid scheme, if we allow it to go beyond half of a GDP, okay, which is say 5 million in this case. So if we allow 5 million to be consumed by a pyramid scheme, the economy will definitely collapse, as in the case of Albania, because the rest of the funds have been held outside of the banking system. And it's illegally not within the operation of the economy. And as a result of that, the economy has to collapse because there will be no funds in the banking system, and people are holding on to funds that are outside of the banking system. So if we look at the way pyramid scheme, others, they actually hide behind banking system, like in the case of the United States and Albania, for example. But in Solomon Islands, most common type of pyramid scheme, they actually operated outside of the banking sector. So it's either can be both if it's operated within the banking system or outside. But when pyramid scheme exists, in this case, like the indicator is 5 million here, high chances the economy will collapse. Now, 5 million here, which is half of 10 or half of nominal GDP, which is 11, if we say the pyramid scheme, if the pyramid scheme raised $5 million by its existence to lure customers, this $5 million here, the indicator that I mentioned, as in the case of Albania, if Solomon Islands reach 5 million here, it will equal to at least the money supply of the country. Now, what is money supply here? So money supply here is actually the value of funds that is within all the citizens of the country that are in their hands, either within their hands or they are held with the bank as deposits. So this is including businesses, for the businesses and for the individuals and employees of the government and the private sector. All of these, they are the funds that are held within their deposits as well as in their pockets. Now, think about, I said, 500,000 of this, which is the indicator that causes Albany to collapse. If 5 million here, we're talking about this rest of 5 million here is actually in the hands of these selfish owners of this pyramid scheme. Now, the economy will definitely collapse. It will collapse because there will be no money. You will go into the banks will say it's actually empty. But the system says we have $5 million, but this $5 million is actually with these people who have no mercy on us. Those people who actually holding onto these funds, and they transacted this money outside of the system. And they also lure these citizens or these people who are actually holding onto these funds to make a deposit. So that is why there is a potential chance for an economy to collapse within this indicator. So I said again, it is not sustainable for us to allow pyramid scheme to exist beyond $5 million. If $5 million existed, we will know that there will be no money in the bank, in the deposits, because people will be withdrawing money out and giving it to the pyramid scheme. So it is important that regulators, such as the central bank or reserve bank for that matter, they have to interfere with this sort of activities to allow. Now, when is the right time to interfere with pyramid scheme? Now, let me make some comments here. I was really upset with the way the regulators are dealing with illegal pyramid scheme or pyramid scheme. Even if you're a pyramid scheme, directly or indirectly, you are still a illegal business. Now, I am a bit disappointed by the way regulators, in this case the Central Bank of Solomon Islands, interfere with these recent cases of this 2020 pyramid scheme that existed in the Solomon Islands, which is the One Link Pacifica. Now, the regulators should act as regulators, not to have press conferences and telling people that you are illegal. That is a waste of time in the sense of how, investigating a financial crime that is operating within your jurisdiction. Now, the tests of whether you are issuing a bank certificate to that operator, that test is a good test for a regulator to intervene. If you are not issuing a banking license to an operator, and that operator is actually not a banker, but is actually functioning as a banker, that is basically a red flag. That intervention has to be active and proactive. It doesn't come in the form of press release or conference discussion in the media. It's not about that. It should be a direct intervention into this pyramid scheme in the form of as a regulator. Secondly, the law on the financial institution of Solomon Islands actually defined pyramid, and the pyramid have been defined. So if whatever is operating as a illegal entity that is close to the operation of pyramid scheme, close to the definition of your Financial Institutions Act, that intervention has to be done. It has to be carried out the investigation to allow for tests of whether they are undertaking pyramid scheme based on the definition of the financial institution law. And if there is a positive conclusion on their finding, then a prompt action to cease this operation so that you save your citizens, you save the people who are actually part of the scheme. So, I mean, for going forward, the lesson that I really wanted to put here is the intervention that should be more proactive and active, in the sense that, doing some tests, for example, what products you are selling. So regulators should track that product either outside or inside the banking system, and that trace of the product have to fully comply with the way that the so-called pyramid scheme is investing on its product. For example, I've said that the product was 700, 250, 5,000, 200, 2,000 plus products where you deposit and you receive a more than 100% of bonus or interest within the next 30 or 40 days. So these are the kinds of things that regulators should at least test it. Like where did the reinvestment occur? Which entity or which global bank which traced the evidence of money trail from the basis of their bank system, or the basis of where they save the money, whether it's outside or inside the bank, and how the money will be reinvested itself. So if those tests are failed, then I think a immediate intervention just to save the citizens and to save what we are dealing here, not to allow this activity so that it reaches a certain point that is, close to very risky in terms of the liquidity within an economy. So that's about that. So for the regulator perspective and those who really want to get quick reach in terms of the activities that they do, remember we have an indicator here, but this indicator is an indicator where we can be collapsed. However, we can save the economy and we can save people's money by intervening, at least when they are below 100,000, for example, or below 50,000. Like the quicker we do, the quicker we save the economy. So this is just a presentation to the people who really causes about why regulators interfere. So that's it. Other people probably may ask, why they are doing this to the pyramid scheme or to operators that are related to pyramid scheme and not existing bankers. Now, the bankers or the banking or the commercial banks that we have in our economy, they actually have certain definition and certain capital and certain rules and certain, checklist within the Financial Institutions Act that they really have to comply before they are part of this thing. So it's actually different from the way pyramid scheme behave. So this presentation is just about understanding why regulators, such as the Reserve Bank, they actually reserve, or they actually want to protect people, protect the economy, and protect the citizens, which they are bound by law to look after. So I think the takeaway here is to understand, firstly, what is GDP and the indicator of GDP, and why we can't allow pyramid scheme not to go at least half of the GDP, because we have instances of other countries. I've given the example already where it collapsed when the pyramid scheme reaches a situation that they access half of the GDP, and in our case, the half can be the money that is within the deposits and within the hands of the people within the country. So my last reflection on the takeaway would be a quicker remedial action in terms of participation of the stakeholders, that's law enforcement agencies such as Financial Intelligence Unit, the police, as well as the central bank, to combine and be able to fight this. especially when we look forward for the future occurrence of pyramid scheme. Thank you.